The Commerce Clause! My least favorite clause in the Constitution. Why is it my least favorite clause in the Constitution? I think that courts abuse it to be lazy. I have opinions. Look, the Commerce Clause is the idea that Congress can regulate commerce. This is my opinion on that idea. Great idea. My problem with the Commerce Clause is that courts love to just go, this is a commerce issue. Boo. Why do I think boo? Because they use it to get around segregation issues. And other issues as well, but segregation is the big one. Congress loves to go, yeah, segregation is it's a Commerce Clause thing, so they can regulate it. No, my fundamental opinion is that it's a 14th, 15th issue. It's a civil right 14th, 15th issue, and that it should be banned without Congress's say. I think that they already said they banned it in the 14th and 15th Amendment. That's my opinion on the matter. I'm talking about, your Heart of Atlanta and stuff. I think that the Civil Rights Acts should stand on their own, supported by the 14th and the 15th, not by the Commerce Clause, because the Commerce Clause is slightly more limited. That's really my only opinion. Love the idea that segregation is banned. Very good thing. Again, this is a hot takes channel. We do not allow cold takes. Everyone go in the comments and give me your most hot take on Heart of Atlanta. That's right. I will ban anyone who says anything negative about the outcome. Please only talk about the actual reason why they got to the outcome. Anyway, so back to the thing I'm talking about. Commerce Clause. What is the Commerce Clause? It's the idea that Congress can regulate commerce. What is commerce? Courts have been whiffly on what exactly commerce is, but basically, you've got the instrumentalities and the channels of commerce. You've got, your boats and your planes and your train tracks and your trains, right? These carry things around and move them, and people pay them to move things. That's commerce that goes between the states. That's 100% that. Stuff that affects that, yeah. Stuff that affects that, no. Where is the line? It's once again wherever the courts truly feel like drawing it. I'll pull up the exact test they use, but it's another one of those where the court and we say so tests. So generally speaking, let me just scroll down to the Commerce Clause, just because I like to have my actual, theory of federal, shut up, necessary and proper. So, right. By the way, the commerce has to be interstate commerce. Just FYI, that doesn't exist anymore. Interstate commerce is no longer an extant concept because you can't pay someone without using interstate commerce, right? Credit cards, that's interstate. You want to use the wires, that's interstate. Okay, you want to use a fully cash transaction? Okay, great. What are you buying? Oh, I'm buying a motorcycle. That motorcycle was made in a different state. It doesn't exist anymore. Fully interstate commerce died with the railroad. So don't worry about that. The commerce is interstate. Because Congress doesn't, okay, when Congress is regulating commerce, they're regulating kinds of commerce. So if Congress passes an act that's regulating wheat sales, and I know I'm stealing the Filburn case, I'm doing that intentionally. They're regulating wheat sales. They can regulate wheat sales. If you're going to sue and say, my wheat stays in the state of Illinois, doesn't matter. Because wheat, as an aggregate, does not. Wheat crosses borders all the time, right? I guarantee there's not a wheat farm in D.C., but I can get bread in D.C. Explain that. Interstate commerce. So, if the class of activity itself is part of interstate or affects interstate commerce, then it's covered. When someone is suing under the commerce, or sue to say something is not covered by the Commerce Clause, they should not be alleging that what they did is not covered. That's not how it works. It needs to be what the class of activity being regulated is. And that's how Congress can get really broad with their commercial regulation, right? So the big example of like something that doesn't affect commerce is there was a bill that said you can't have a gun in a school zone, and it basically said, well, it affects education, which affects the value of commerce. No, that's too tenuous. However, commentators across the whole opinion board basically went, well, Congress messed up here. If Congress had said sale and possession in the same sentence, yep, that's one class of activity. Congress gets to pick what the class is, and that class of activity does affect. So if they had made that illegal, likely the statute would have stood. But they never actually went and did that, as far as I'm aware. I believe I can say fairly certainly that they did not. There is a whole history behind the Commerce Clause, but that's not what I'm being tested on. Not that much. The court, they're basically being regulated. I'm basically being tested on the modern rules, right? So there's a rational basis test at this point. Yeah, and then there's the Lopez, which, if where they're regulating the use of the channels, the instrumentalities, or activities that have a substantial relation to interstate commerce, and this is a economic activity, right? And yeah, again, it's still about the class of activity, right? It's not about your individualized situation when it comes to the Commerce Clause, and that's the really important thing that you can get tripped up on if you forget these, right? And so the court says there are two things that are beyond the reach of Congress: non-commercial activity, wholly non-commercial classes of activity, and then our good friend activities that is traditionally regulated by the states. Really hard to give good examples. Okay, I forgot. So that's what they can do with the Commerce Clause. There are a couple of limits, but these aren't really limits on the Commerce Clause. They're limits on pretty much all federal power. Congress cannot use the states as vehicles to enact policy. What does that mean? Hello, New York. We're the United States government, and you are required to have a 25% income tax on all income from people from Pakistan. Why? Mad at them. They are really making me mad today. Can't do that, no. The U.S. federal government can pass a 25% tax on, they probably cannot pass a 25% tax on Pakistani people. I can think of a million reasons constitutionally why that would not be allowed. But let's just say, well, that is the thing they want to do. They can pass it, Commerce Clause, every other issue aside, they can pass it, but they can't say New York has to pass it. Because they can't force states to enact legislation. That's a general limit on power, but it's going to be discussed in commerce power context generally, because that's how Congress does everything now, because commerce, as Bill Clinton likes to say, it's the economy, stupid. So, yeah, they can't force states. They also can't co-opt state employees. They can't say, people of the State Department of Motor Vehicles, you are required to staple truck nuts to everyone's trucks. Yeehaw and amen. No, you can't do that. You could definitely, for sure, say that all cars must have truck nuts on them. And that's vital legislation. But you can't require that the truck nuts be installed by people at the DMV. You just can't do that. You can't force state employees to act. Now, it used to be that you couldn't regulate the relationship between employees of the state and the state. You can do that now. However, it can't be specifically targeted at the states. You can say, there's a minimum wage, everybody's got to pay it, including to people who work for the government. You can do that. But you can't be like, state employees specifically have this regulation. And I'll just, once again, check if I'm missing anything. Supremacy Clause, I should mention this, but U.S. law, if valid, is always supreme over state law. That's it. Let me see if there's anything. Oh, also 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment, I'm going to mention it briefly. Congress can always regulate what states are doing when it comes to the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is the whole due process clause. They can always regulate with that. They have the power to regulate any due process violations. Again, feel free. how you do that. And yeah, states can be regulated as actors, but not in the ways in which they regulate their residents, right? So you cannot force them to pass laws, right? And that is the non-dormant commerce clause.